When I need to impress someone with a gift, I go straight to 1-800-Flowers. There's a reason they've spent 50 years as the floral authority. Every stem is hand-selected by a vetted florist, and with same-day delivery nationwide, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. That's why millions go to 1-800-Flowers to celebrate life's most important moments. Order now for up to 40% off. Don't miss out on this limited-time offer. Act now and save up to 40% at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. This episode, Artifacts. Sadly, the last one of the 6 comic books written by executive producer David A. Goodman. This is the one where Ed Zola's astroarchaeology professor, needs a favor.
Hold on, say it again. Because you said Ed Zola's, I think.
Okay.
No, keep us in, but Ed Zola's.
This is the one where Ed's old astroarchaeology professor needs a favor and isn't going to let a little low-key alien trafficking get in the way. My name is Mike Richards.
And I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi. You can also call this episode the Gordon was right episode. Mission Log.
Hey, that's where I'm wearing my Gordon Malloy t-shirt.
Oh, is that the Hug the Talkie one?
Yep, exactly right. Being that I feel like this is a Gordon episode.
Well, yeah, I have more to talk about with that, too. Not anything interesting. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. We'll have some fun because the Orville is fun. And then we'll discuss the meanings, morals, and messages because, that's what we do on Mission Log the Orville. And we want to hear your thoughts and ideas, and you can tell us what you think at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or you can email us at missionlog-theorville@roddenberry.com. And if you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel with us live or at any time, I guess, just hit like and subscribe. And remember, we might use your comments on an upcoming episode. Hey, Mike, are you ready for the recap?
I am ready for the recap.
Let's go.
Artifacts, Part 1. With the Orville docked at Outpost 47, Ed and Gordon are walking the promenade. Gordon's enjoying a triple waffle cone methamphetamine when they run into Professor LaMarche, their astroarchaeology professor from Union Point. He remembers Ed, but does he remember Gordon? He does not. Seems that Ed has a heretofore unseen interest in astroarchaeology, and he'd love to catch up with Professor LaMarche on the Orville. Later in the mess hall, LaMarche tells Ed that he has dedicated his career to studying the Zancon, a race rumored to have controlled a large part of the galaxy over 3 million years ago. All he needs is for Ed to take him and his assistant Chalmy to the Cruxus system. Not so fast, LaMarche. The Cruxus system has 4 stars, and the Magnetech and the Gravity Tech make navigation nearly impossible. However, remembering Arthur C. Clarke's first law, Ed agrees to give LaMarche's research a look. Isaac agrees that LaMarche may be onto something. Having studied the Bormanis Stone, no relation, and an epic Retepsian poem, The Four Brothers, Isaac concludes that the Zarkons may have hidden part of their massive fleet in the Cruxus system. Never wanting to be the senior officer with a secret, Ed asks Admiral Halsey for permission. Halsey warns Ed that LaMarche was removed from his position at Union Point due to overzealousness and is shunned by the scientific community. Citing one James T. Kirk, Halsey is persuaded and the mission is approved. Still stinging from his recent breakup with Laura Huggins, Gordon offers Chalmy a little bit of that mac and cheese. Chalmy never had any before because she's never been in space before. LaMarche gave her parents a food synthesizer if Chalmy would go with him until his work was done. Super sketchy, and Gordon reports this to Ed and Kelly, who seemed remarkably unconcerned as they approached the beautiful yet deadly Cruxus system. As the Orville enters the system, it draws energy from the 4 stars like a magnet, causing a hull breach and damage to the upper ring. Exposition Kelly reminds Ed that the Admiral told him not to put the ship in any unnecessary danger. As Ed gives the order to back off, LaMarche fights past Gordon and breaks the Orville through the interference and into the Cruxis system, resulting in catastrophic systems failures and 3 fatalities. The Orville is dead in space. With LaMarche in the brig and the main viewer back online, the bridge crew sees before them the Zancon fleet. Their only hope is that one of those 3-million-year-old ships will work. Part 2. Unable to communicate with the Union, Ed decides to board a Zancon ship with Isaac, Gordon, Tala, LaMarche, and Chalmy. As they approach, the ship begins to light up. Then a door appears, and Ed gives the order, "Take us in." Inside, there are no life forms, so the ship must be automated. But why would the systems allow unfettered access to aliens? Weird, right? Professor, anything to add? Deciding the answers may be on the bridge, the gang is suddenly zapped there. But there are no control panels. In fact, they haven't seen any control panels at all, confirming LaMarche's theory that the Zancons controlled everything with their thoughts. But who is controlling the ship? You see, LaMarche determined that Chalmy's race descended from the Zancons, and they share over 90% of their DNA. She has been controlling the ship, albeit subconsciously. LaMarche tells Chalmy to take the center seat. Ed questions the instruction, but Gordon says they can trust her. With that, Chalmy activates the engines. So far, so good. Chalmy makes the ship go. Now, amazing. They have transversed the system. Now, LaMarche tells Chalmy to destroy an asteroid. Do it. She does, which kind of weirds everybody out. In Ed's office, the senior staff discuss where they'll go from here. Prison for LaMarche? Not likely. The tech is too valuable. Does the end justify the means? To LaMarche, it certainly does. Realizing that it's really Chalmy who has the power, Gordon pays her a visit. Yo, Chalmy, you up? Turns out she is, and she's meeting with Professor LaMarche. Yes, he's going to take her home, but Gordon asks, has he told you that he's going to need a metric custon of Chalmy's to drive the Zancon ships, or that your friends and family will all be slaves? With that, Chalmy zaps herself over to the Zancon ship, brings the engines and weapons online, and destroys the remainder of the fleet. Later, Chalmy bids the Orville goodbye. She's going home, and the Orville will wait for help to arrive. Soon, the whole affair will be classified. Chalmy thanks Gordon, who, for once, was right about everything. The end.
Thank you, Mike. I was saying that was excellent writing. It might be some of my favorite writing that you've done.
Well, thank you very much. I put a little bit of time into this one. Thinking heretofore in scene. That was convenient, right? But on the other hand, we didn't know that Picard had an interest in archaeology either, until, at least a couple of seasons went by. So
he's not just a captain. Okay?
Yeah, Ed's kink is astroarchaeology. That's kind of cool. We didn't know about that before now.
We don't have to label things, okay?
We don't have to label.
Who
bang, get
too?
banged. Nobody. Especially you got Retepsians involved.
Actually, I'm so glad you said Retepsians. We did talk about how the Retepsian was on the alternate universe.
The Lady Retepsian.
But we have Rob Lowe on the cover of this book that you gave me.
Wow.
And he's never in the whole series, and neither is Lieutenant Dan. So, why are we looking at them? Why are they here?
So Lieutenant Dan, I noticed, was in the background tonight. I don't think he's had so much as a line, and we apologize to Lieutenant Dan if, in fact, he did. But I don't think Lieutenant Dan had as much of a line in the comic books.
And there's two other characters that we haven't seen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. But there's this guy who looks like the painting from Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
And then there's this guy who has handles for ears.
I think that's either one of the Bruidians or the Navarians, which also was a Cupid's dagger character.
I kept meaning to mention, by the way, retroactively as well, that I think the Aki character from Heroes is Mila Kunis.
Mila Kunis.
I'm pretty sure it's...
Sorry, for all of you A Million Ways to Die in the Old West fans, you might recognize the Mila Kunis chant.
Mila Kunis. I mean, we obviously love her. She's part of the Seth MacFarlane lore, so it makes sense that she would be the prototype for that character.
She is amazing. That's a really good call. Never even crossed my mind.
Yeah, it crossed my mind after we finished. So anyway,
I wonder if that was like some proof of concept stuff where David Cabeza drew out some characters from, maybe it was just given a random episode like Cupid's Dagger and said, hey, try to draw these folks, and then they were able to use them for cover art. This was written as well by David A. Goodman, artist David Cabeza, and colorist Michael Atea. Part 1 was released on October 20th of 2021. And for those playing the home game and listening in real time, had to wait about 5 weeks, practically a Thanksgiving Day present here in the U.S. to get part 2 on November 24th of 2021. Like two of the other 3 season 2.5 stories. They're set between seasons 2 and 3 with digressions being the outlier. And we hadn't mentioned this, but I struggle with handwriting. I'm sure your handwriting is beautiful. It probably looks
impeccable.
Like it's done by woodland creatures, and
no,
looks fantastic.
One of my teachers said I look like an Asian boy wrote it. So, but it's good. It's nice and clean. It was a compliment.
Okay, that was a weirdly racist compliment.
I think so.
But the lettering is done by Richard Starkings and Comic Craft's Jimmy Betancourt. We had not mentioned that before. I always thought that this was maybe some sort of a font that was, kind of comic book font or that kind of thing. But I don't know that they would credit the fact that the lettering was done by those 2 individuals. If it was just somebody just typing Sans comic book into their computer.
I would also say it's possible that they developed the font, and that's why they're crediting them, because they developed it.
I like that. Well, I want to share that. I want to give that credit as well.
I think that's right. And then there's other times where you can see certain things are written, so it could be... I'm going to guess that this is a font face, like a font type, but that they developed it. So that's going to be my guess.
Sans comic book. That's what I'm calling it.
Sans
comic book.
There you go.
So did you notice right off the bat, Outpost 47?
What does that mean?
So, like this,
it triggered something for me. I just couldn't remember.
So 47 is definitely in like Chris Berman era track. Rick Berman era track. Sorry. So every once in a while I get into my Rick Berman mode, Chris Berman mode, but Rick Berman era Star Trek. There were a lot of 47s, starting actually with Joe Menosky. And I kind of wanted to get to the bottom of this. I mean, some people take it all the way back to the original airing of Star Trek, the original series, where it's cited that 47% of the TVs across this great land of ours were tuned in to watch the episode with the salt vampire. Yeah. So, but it actually, where it really worked its way into the writing was with Joe Menosky, and he attended Pomona College in Claremont, California, right? Not too far from LA, where there's a club called the 47 Society, which claims that, there's a mathematical proof that all numbers are equal to 47. It was actually proven to be a false proof, but if you kind of follow it step by step by step down and don't question any of the steps or the validity of them, it leads you in that direction. That's why it's called a false proof. And then there's also a theory that the number 47 kind of occurs more in nature than other numbers. I think that's probably perception. For me, I see the number 73 almost everywhere.
Oh my goodness.
It's uncanny, but I'm kind of looking for it though too. So that's kind of how I explain it.
Like 42, it's like the answer to life's question, what the meaning of life is 42.
From Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Correct. And so people use it like that, but then it does show up the more you think about it.
So it's funny because when Rick Berman was asked, he said 47 was 42 adjusted for inflation. Which, we're going to have to change that to a different number at this point, I think.
I do love this. That's fantastic.
But, so he first started using that in the fourth season in Next Gen. The in-joke kind of quickly caught on to the point that it was just kind of ridiculous by the time they got, into Voyager. And then I think it kind of started to normalize after that.
Crazy.
But yeah, through last couple of seasons of Next Gen into not as much DC9, but Deep Space Nine, but definitely Voyager. It's kind of all over the place. So there's stimulants in that Horbalak ice cream, huh?
Early on, first of all, I want that ice cream. That sounds fantastic. And I gotta love a reason.
The methamphetamine ice cream?
It's very good. Again, some of your best writing, Mike. So good. I'm just so glad we finally got a comic about Gordon. He's been like, he was in the first one when, like helping out, but like he didn't have like an arc in that.
Right.
And again, it's questionable what arc he had here, but he was pivotal to the story, and we've gotten pretty much everyone up until this point, and it was nice to have this be Gordon's.
It really is, and I definitely want to talk about that more later on, because I think how certain people view Gordon and have gotten used to viewing Gordon, and how certain people view maybe a former professor has a lot to do with kind of where I land on this story.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think there's messages, morals, and meanings to talk about with it, but I also think I think that maybe this lands there too, but that professor did recognize him. That professor had to know he was going to helm the ship, because that was his point in choosing the Orville, because someone had to get into it. So I have a feeling the professor just didn't like him.
Yeah. So your theory is like, not only could he convince Ed, which was my only theory.
Well, my theory is, like Ed's in a kiss ass, and he could get.
And he was like, he knew they had a relationship, some history. He had his hereto unforeseen interest in astroarchaeology that Lamarche could exploit. Lamarche. I don't know how you say that. I was saying Lamarche, and then I was getting kind of bored with that. So
Lamarche. I think Lamarche is correct.
Lamarche. So so I thought he was going to try to use that relationship with Ed. What I was not thinking that you were, so tip of the hat to you, is that he was also exploiting Gordon's ability to, shall we say, hug the donkey and be the best helmsman in the Union. I think you're right.
I mean, it would be... Obviously, this is a person that the Lamarche doesn't give a care about people or lives, but I think he knew what he needed to accomplish his means to an end, and I can't imagine Gordon doesn't factor into that to some extent.
Why not butter him up a little bit then?
I wonder, and because you got me thinking, and I think this is not accurate, but. If we take an extra step in and you asked me to psychoanalyze, he knew that Gordon isn't stimulated by the interest level, but he's stimulated by, like, you can't do that. Like, I think rather than go, oh, I love you, dude, I think that would tip off Gordon more that something was wrong, rather than, how some people like can get under people's skin by currying their competition or making them feel inadequate or something.
Yeah,
so that's my
thought. Excuse me. Or like playing to his desire to break the rules, or his propensity to break the rules.
There you go. So I think a lot of that subtext that you and I are mining, but I just have a hard time believing he didn't fully remember the screw up from his class. But I also love too, coming back to the fun part of this, of how we like to analyze this show, I love how much cursing there is, and I took a picture of the panel where he just says the F word when they reveal that they found the ships.
Yeah, no, that was great, and that's something that worked its way in, from the beginning of the comic books, which has been great to get that language in, and we saw some more language in the Orville New Horizons as it moved over to streaming. So it's kind of a nice sort of evolution of
Using it appropriately.
Using it appropriately and bridging the gap, if you will, between Fox and
Right. That's right. This is like giving us like, hey guys, by the way, this season 3 is going to be raucous. They've been doing the same thing, and you'll not be able to unsee it now when you go from the phase 1 and 2 and sort of phase 3 of Marvel. They don't say the S word. They don't say poop, and now they say it all the time. It's like the FCC like lifted the ban on how many times you can say the S word, and it is rampant through quantum mania. It's all throughout Wakanda Forever, and you can just see them start going, "Let's see when we can say the S word."
And you don't have Captain America anymore to correct their language. I don't know. Language.
Yeah, 100%. So you'll notice it now if you haven't already that they're lifting the ban on some bad words. We don't do that here. Do you know how hard it is for me not to curse in music?
It is so hard. I mean, I had to write metric cuss load into the cuss ton. Metric cuss ton. I had to write into the recap.
I love that.
Just to keep our rating. When LaMarche was trying to convince Ed that we can do this, even though Ed said 4 stars, gravity issues, magnetism, magnetech issues. I think he actually said it's impossible. And it reminded me of Arthur C. Clarke, who has 3 laws, the third of which is probably the most famous.
Okay.
Which is any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. Right? We hear that, fairly regularly in science fiction. The other one is one that I try to use, which is the second law, which is the only way to test the limits of the possible, is to occasionally just sort of dip your toe, just sort of tread into the impossible.
It's very similar to it's not Shakespeare, Sherlock Holmes quote.
It's kind of, eliminating the impossible. The only thing that's left is the possible.
It's the impossible. Yep. Yeah,
and then the one that I thought of in this one is ageist. No doubt about it. I don't know how well it
aged.
Pun intended. Pun intended. I don't like when people don't intend their puns. Intend your puns, people. But when a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he is almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong.
Huh.
So you had this distinguished, elderly scientist stating that something is possible. And I think Ed was like, all right, I'll give it to my science officer and see what they think.
That's interesting. I think if you're Ed, you operate under the assumption of curiosity, or you operate under curiosity. If it's not going to be a huge risk to just look at the facts. Mm-hmm. And there is a part. So, okay. I was afraid for a second that this episode was going to be similar to the Word of Avis, where all of a sudden they're worshippers.
It's the world of Avis, Jess.
I know. I'm so sorry for
I'm just kidding.
You. No, I'm so sorry. I struggled. I can't remember it. And I know it's the world of Avis.
It's the Word of Avis. I just got it wrong.
I know. Okay. The insurance world of Avis. It's where, in the comics where they are serving Avis now, or, worshiping Avis. And I was curious how much this guy was going. I didn't know if they were going to repeat the beat or if it was going to be similar. And I knew it wouldn't be obviously the same. But we kind of talked about this when we read the novella. And I don't know that we ended up. Did we talk about it here? We did. We read the novella. We covered the novella, The Sympathy for the Devil, which I just can't get out of my mind. Such a good, interesting novella. Story for the Orville, and just different. There is a fascination that, particularly in my history, I'm not speaking in absolutes, but from what I can tell, especially white men have a fascination with Nazi era information. Watch all the history episodes about Hitler and the war, and whether for whatever reason, and I'm sure the reasons are gigantic. You probably had someone in your family that served in the war. You are curious about the war. There's so many different reasons. And it was also like the first fully documented war, and the atrocities were insane. So, right? Like, just from a purely morbid curiosity standpoint, I can understand the fascination with it. LaMarche similarly had a fascination with the nature of these Xanacons, whatever. What are they called, these people?
Oh, you had to ask me. Zancons.
I was close. So the Zancons have very much a similar bent toward this. It seems to be a good allegory for like a Nazi Germany, right? Sort of. I just don't love that we're like, I like that we are watching the worst version of it when someone's obsessed with power themselves. Again, I can't find the line between talking about the fun things, Mike, and then going into morals and messages.
Yeah, because I am totally there with you. So this one, I think there's I think there is definitely that. I think there's that curiosity about this very powerful, albeit enslaving race that was, in charge of much of the galaxy millions of years ago, and the technology they left behind and the unanswered questions. But here's where I think LaMarche, here's where I think his headspace is. Ed was like, dude, what's going on with your career, man? I haven't heard much out of you lately.
Right.
And he said, careers ebb and flow. Mine's ebbing right now, so I've decided to put essentially all my eggs into one basket. I've decided to dedicate my research to the one area that I have a shot at having some payback for. And that was the Zancons. And because of that, I think he became obsessed with finding these people. Now, maybe the obsession started before that.
It did. That was my insinuation from Admiral Halsey, that his opinions of them got him sort of blackballed. So I think
it did, and shunned.
That's what. Maybe blackballed also isn't even politically correct.
No, I was.
But to that exact point is how it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg, I guess, is my thought process. Something about this group of information is alluring for multiple reasons. The history of it, the mythology of it, the power of it, and he was absorbed by the power of it. I
think that's true, and it reminds me of Space Seed, where Scotty, Bones, and Kirk were not explaining the history to Spock, because he seemed to be pretty up on it, the history of Khan Noonien Singh. And they were all kind of admiring him. They were like, "This guy was special. I got a special place for this guy. He was one of the good ones." And Spock was like, "Gentlemen, we're talking about a tyrant who is responsible for killing millions of people."
Right.
And they were like, "Yeah, we could admire him and hate him all at the same time. It's complex. People admire that power. I think that's what draws people to that autocratic leader. It's that living vicariously through them. They want to be, or possibly they want to see, one person, no red tape, no BS, just get it done.
And I think
it's dangerous.
It is dangerous, because I think gosh darn it, Mike, we have no sections in this episode. I think what's dangerous about that is we'd like to assume we'd be the people that wouldn't go and commit atrocities, because even LaMarche convinced himself that 3 people dead is worth a 3 million year old discovery.
Yeah. Only 3 for now.
Gosh, let's talk about funny things for a second, because we could go back and unpack this all we want.
Yeah, so when Bortus made the comment, it is accepted as a fact on Mockless that they existed. Yeah, buddy. A lot of things are accepted as fact on Mockless.
It was a very Worf answer to me. Like, no one was asking Bortus. And to that exact point, I love that Gordon was like, "How come John John and I didn't know about this. And John's like, I knew about it. Like, if I'm John, I'm offended.
Yeah, like apparently Gordon didn't get the memo that John is no longer the soda drinking,
John one.
like underachiever sitting next to him on the bridge.
Totally.
That he's actually, making something of himself now. The Worf thing, man, that just reminded me of, I think it was Devil's Due, where they were trying to figure out who this person appearing to be the devil was. And Worf was like, Klingons believe that Tovokor, blah, blah, blah. And Picard just gives him a look like, yeah, no.
Right. No.
He just doesn't even answer him, just kind of looks at him and shakes his head.
I love that. This is they really were giving Gordon a really hard time this whole episode. Yeah. Do you think that Gordon was interested in Chalmy?
No, not at all.
You don't think so?
No. I think he was interested in Chalmy as
from the heart perspective,
as a being, as an individual, but not
right.
romantically. No, I was just strictly trying to be funny there.
No, I'm just asking.
You don't make
general.
mac and cheese for people if you're not interested.
That's what I'm saying.
Give them the mac and cheese, baby.
Because if you don't do the mac and cheese, if you don't want the end result of what the mac and cheese means,
yeah, and you don't ask somebody if it's movie night if you don't want to go watch Netflix and chill. But no, I do
like Netflix and chill. The ice cream.
I do not think that that Gordon was putting the moves on Chalmy, regardless of what my recap may have sounded like.
No, I didn't think so at all. But I actually had the question too. I think more that his empathy was going off like crazy.
Yes.
And probably because she wasn't being like the forest. They were missing the forest for the trees with her too. Like she's being taken advantage of here, folks. And I have to imagine, even though we haven't met these beings before, that LaMarche giving her family a food replicator,
a food replicator synthesizer
doesn't break the code. Like, they had to have been technologically advanced, but usually that's the thing that tips them off that they're technologically advanced.
So
besides space flight.
Let's look at, a couple of things. We're going to have to probably move to the next part of this because there's a lot if we can kind of recapture this.
Jeez.
Man.
Things.
I am glad. The last thing I'll say, I think, is that I am glad that Ed went to Admiral Halsey to brief him on what he wanted to do.
Right.
And that Halsey, as always, offered advice and gave him permission to do so. If this was an episode of any era of Star Trek, they would have asked for permission, been told no, and then just stolen the Enterprise anyway.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I love it. All right, you ready to move on, I guess?
I am indeed.
Jeez, crazy. See you on the other side. So we have come to the part of the show where we're going to explore, finally, the big ideas of the comic book artifacts and discuss the meanings, morals, and messages to see if they align with the Star Trek Roddenberry philosophy. Mike, I know you got some thoughts.
Man, that food synthesizer was a red flag. Right? I mean, granted, this is before the happenings of the big doings of Future Unknown, right? The season 3, the Orville New Horizons.
Right.
Season finale.
Right.
Finale. And they dedicated that whole thing to don't give tech to people that haven't invented the tech on themselves, because you got to invent the tech and then you got to be better people and tech and better people and that kind of thing. And if you give a bunch of tech to people that aren't good people, they're going to just use it to kill each other, use it for their own advantage, use it for profit, things like that. This guy admittedly trades a food synthesizer for an opportunity to take your daughter and show her the galaxy. And I'll bring her back as soon as my work is done.
So if she is 97% Xanacons,
sure,
then they probably already are Earth-faring people, or galaxy-faring people, I would imagine.
Man, they were in mud huts with grass tents and stuff like that.
So here's the question then.
So I'm going to say no.
So They've written Ed and Kelly dumb a couple times, and I know it's just for like sitcom and TV show purposes, but like Ed, Gordon's your best friend, and Gordon is telling you that something seems off with the relationship, and neither of you are taking him seriously. And that's not the first thing that you go, oh wait, it's weird that he gave her a food synthesizer. Isn't that weird?
You know, it is weird. That's weird. And then the Admiral Halsey speech was weird with the overzealousness and being shunned by the scientific community. Now,
I did not take it as into caution.
Well, I don't know how much he took it into. Did he put it in the bowl and mix it around and help him make a decision? Probably. But what did he have going for him? He had held this person in high esteem as a professor at Union Point, and he had Isaac look over the data on the comm scanner that was presented. So it was those two things against, Gordon's feeling that this was that Chalmey was bought, as he put it, and it struck him as slavery. And it was the Admiral's, this guy's had some problems, but there are times where there's a very good connotation to being overzealous, right? People, people say they just wouldn't give up. They kept trying no matter what the odds were. Everybody told them no, and they wouldn't take no for an answer, right?
Right.
Those are all described in positive ways.
Right.
That kind of depends on what results you get and how many people get killed along the way. And things like that. So I think Ed was written interestingly this episode because he did seem to listen to Admiral Halsey insofar as missions approved, don't get yourself or anybody else killed. He did not listen to Gordon really whatsoever. He said he was very guilty of what a lot of leaders do, which is believe what they hear first.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Believe the first story they hear. So because that makes that strong for I think we do too. It's called the law of primacy. You believe or you remember what you hear first more often. It is. And consequently you don't put as much weight on new information that you get when conditions change. So the first thing he heard from LaMarche was I'm taking this person, showing them the galaxy, and I'm going to bring them home when my work is done. And that sounds very altruistic, right? That sounds, like kind of like a Doctor Who and a companion situation, or like any, other kind of, mentor protege kind of thing.
We never question those relationships with the Doctor. That's a really good point, Mike.
Well, unfortunately, in 60 years of Doctor Who, I think it's fairly transparent what the goings on.
I know, but they're just like, hey, let's go, Rose. It's a good point. Yeah, I love it.
I think with as much pushback as there was in the live action series to this kind of situation, that should have been much more of a red flag, I think.
Gosh, yeah. But then I think the curiosity won out on all of them.
Yeah. Because they're explorers.
This fascination. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And Kelly was again, have we had a decent Kelly comic book story?
We have, because of her going back in time.
Because of digressions.
Yeah, that was a strong Kelly episode.
That was a very strong Kelly story.
Right.
Because in this one, Ed's like, all right, Bortus, call Professor LaMarche to the bridge. And Kelly's like, unless Gordon has an objective. And he's like, shut up.
It was very funny. It was a very funny Kelly moment.
Was that a laugh out loud for you?
Oh my God. There was a couple moments. While I was reading it, the stress was high for me. I was afraid to see what they were going to find. I was afraid to learn what the nature of the relationship was. All the while knowing this is an Orville episode, only so many bad things can happen before the good thing happens.
And you saw all these people in season 3, so you knew they were fine.
No one's dead. Yeah, that's a good point. But I was just like, I was afraid of what they were. I thought they were going to find 3 million Zancons just waiting on the ship. Like,
yeah.
It's really weird that the fleet's just there, but like no one, like they didn't maintain a society on it. But
right.
Kelly was a BITC something else.
She was.
She has judgment against Gordon anyway. She
does,
I think.
and he has judgment against her.
Right.
Something that probably should have gone in the best, would have gone best in the first half. So there were 12.
We biffed it this episode.
There were 12 quote unquote manned probes sent in the Cruxus system. Okay. Manned probes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear manned. It said manned.
Manned.
Manned?
Manned. Isn't that the point of the probe, is being unmanned?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no, they're dead. So maybe LaMarche is right. 3 more dead on the Orville doesn't matter.
You know, all in the name of science.
Another thing that belonged in the first half, poor Earl. He's not. Please don't put it in the first half. Is almost all the background characters looked like Ed and Kelly in this episode.
Oh, that is so fun! Yeah, it definitely did. Like the folks on the in the promenade, the
one that was
at Outpost 47. Yeah, the one that was Kelly.
See, this episode's so heavy that we have to laugh. We have.
Yeah.
It's a good one too. I think I haven't disliked a single one we've read, just like with the episodes of the show.
These are great, and I'm sure if anybody's listening to this or watching this and they haven't read these comic books, we've spoiled pretty much every square inch of it for you.
Oh yeah.
But what we haven't spoiled is just how enjoyable they are. Just the pictures and the words and the writing and the timing is just brilliant. I mean, it's the heart of the Orville. It's good comedy and great storytelling, and it gives you something to think about.
And it doesn't preach, it just doesn't. And I really think that ultimately that is what sets it apart, especially from new era Star Trek right now, is this feeling to give a moral spin on everything, and everything does have a moral, I find, with the Orville, but they have such a better job reflecting us to ourselves by allowing the reality of life to be funny. And
it truly is, a great modernization of 50s and 60s era science fiction that was kind of windows and mirrors, is how I've heard it described.
Right.
In fact, Maddie, one of our listeners and a big fan of the Orville, has said that, I met her at the season 3 premiere, has been saying that for years, that, windows and mirrors, right? You're a mirror of yourself or a window to look into somebody else's way of life. And that's what it provides for us. And it does that in a really, really clever way and funny way, too. So
yes, carry on.
We're at this point. Did we come up with anything as far as messages, morals, meanings? Do you think the show may have lived up to the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy?
I think it lived up to the Orville philosophy really well, where it shows us many different sides of looking at a problem, not taking people for granted, or pigeonholing somebody into just because they're the comic relief. I actually think that makes it even more impressive that this is the last comic book we have up to this point, and we've had Gordon be nothing but the joke.
Right.
Or relief or support. And we get to laugh at everything he says, even if it's just one thing per comic. And he's the voice of reason in this episode. And even us, to your exact point, the primacy, was it primacy?
Yeah, law of primacy.
The primacy law. Us go, well, of course Gordon wouldn't know. Now, granted, we agree with him right away. But it's even more impactful to have this story be the last one we're reading and kind of go, wow, no one really is taking him seriously. So I think it does a good job of making us question our own bias, ultimately.
Yeah, I think it does too. I mean, in some ways, it reminded me of an episode of the original series called the Ultimate Computer, which is the one that introduces Dr. Richard Daystrom and the M5 computer that's supposed to fully automate the Enterprise. But
yes.
it ends up going haywire and killing hundreds of people on the other Connie-class ships. And it turns out that Richard Daystrom was so obsessed with this project that he quite frankly went insane. But he was given so much latitude because of his history and his reputation and what everybody thought of them. We talked a little bit about obsession and becoming your enemy in Heroes, where Aki, a.k.a. Mila Kunis, had to, pick up the sword and become a killer in order to fight back and fight for the Okutum. In this episode, we see, what do we see? We see the Zankons, which are a race of people that enslaved 37 other races. And now we have Professor LaMarche attempting to enslave or convince, cajole, bribe, blackmail, whatever, people into being under his control for his purpose. And Gordon so eloquently realized, or so intelligently realized, that Chalmy is the one with the power. And it's often the people that have the power but don't know it that get oppressed.
Gosh. And one of my least favorite things that people have said to me as I've grown up is that kindness is viewed as a weakness. And, one of the things I think our society is doing a good job of, still nowhere near the end result that anyone would like to see, but strength can have many definitions, right? Strength can also be gentle. Strength can also be patience. Strength can also be quiet. It doesn't have to be this, I hesitate to say it because I'm not saying all men are bad, but a masculine version of what strength is: physical size,
right,
ability, etc. So we're all in this redefinition of, what does this present moment need? Who needs what in this moment? What kind of strength do I need to... So like being able to look at a situation for what it is and take all of the input with fresh eyes. So one of the things I would say that has helped me survive in a world that is very hard, with looking at other people's challenges and feeling so beleaguered by them, and also having to deal with my own challenges that I was raised with and face every day, with new things always cropping up, just because I'm human. I survive well by walking through the world with what I call willful naivete. I'm not ever pretending I don't understand the world, but I'm allowing myself to be surprised by the outcome, rather than, I've seen this before, it's going to be bad. Or, you can surefire a way to be bitter by going, I know how this is going to play out. I might not know how today's going to go.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of cynicality that comes with experience when you've seen things before,
right? And
you accurately or inaccurately predict how it's going to end. And it kind of goes back to that Arthur C. Clarke's law that we talked about before. If you get an older established scientist who says something's possible, they're almost always right. But the other half of that is, if they say it's impossible, they're almost always wrong, because they're relying on that previous experience where something didn't work out. And because of that, now they're cynical.
Please do me a favor, because I'm sure you did the research. Who said that there was a certain amount of risk involved in this business?
James T. Kirk.
There we go. Now that means indeed that this is aligning with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy.
I loved that Admiral Halsey was like, I don't know. Just,
it's so good.
Just go ahead and do it, and don't get anybody killed, doing it. It was great. From a classic TOS episode. Where he said, risk is our business. It's the reason. It's the reason the Enterprise was built. It's the reason we're aboard her. And it was, and then he went on from there. And it was a wonderful speech that I think has survived well and aged well. And if you want to go back, I'm not going to tell you what episode it's in. You can just go back and watch them all because they're all great. Even the season 3 episodes. Just watch them.
I think that fully encapsulates what we're talking about today. Is there is a little bit of risk. I think for the sake of knowledge, they should have gone into there, but they should have never pushed it the way that man.
No, and I think Kelly's timely reminder of the Admiral said, don't put the ship in unnecessary danger, and Ed's order to back off were completely appropriate. But then that obsessive behavior, overzealousness, if you will, of LaMarche, to push past Gordon, who must be like the easiest guy in the world to push out of his desk space, and take the helm away.
I love
he was able to get that done. He did look surprised though in the comic. It had that red that red kind of like star where LaMarche pushed on his shoulder.
Yeah.
To indicate excessive force, and a really surprised look on both the Navigator's face and on Gordon's face. So yeah, LaMarche meant business. Like that's what we can take away from there. The last thing I want to talk about is the halo effect and the horn effect.
You're teaching me so much.
I think we saw. Well, I think we saw both of those today. And as I have done in the past a number of times, I knew a little bit about this, but I didn't want to start, putting finger to keyboard without a source. So I went to verywellmind.com. The halo effect and its opposite, the horn effect, are a type of cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their character. Psychologist Edward Thorndike coined the term in 1920 after an experiment in which he asked commanding officers in the military to evaluate a variety of qualities in their soldiers. These characteristics included such things as leadership, physical appearance, intelligence, loyalty, and dependability. And in a nutshell, he found out that these things just flat out correlated too highly and too much. If you thought highly of one of your men, back then men,
right.
And then you thought highly of all of their attributes. If you thought poorly of them, then everything was wrong with them. And when they tested these folks individually, independently, they found that no, they were good at some things and they were not so good at other things.
Right.
So those ratings were negatively transferred across all of the individual's attributes. So look at celebrities and what we do now, right? I mean, I'm not commanding, soldiers, and I don't think you are. You're not like in the Army National Guard 2 weekends a month or anything like that.
No, definitely not undercover or anything.
But
like that.
look at politicians or actors, right? They're very eloquent, right? They're great. They're good looking, maybe, if it's a celebrity, not a politician. And you're going to maybe conflate that with them being smart or being kind or being considerate or knowing policy and that kind of thing. The halo effect or the horn effect makes it so the perceptions of one quality just flat out lead to a biased judgment. So look at Ed's treatment of LaMarche. Right? Former professor, held in very high esteem, has this research. I don't want to say he could do no wrong. I think there were a couple of red flags in there that Ed just kind of brushed off. But now you got Gordon, right? Now Gordon is his best friend, right? Reportedly, but he's drawn lots of penises on lots of things.
Can't wipe his face off with ice cream.
He's drinking. Life. He's eating, methamphetamine ice cream, a triple cone. Who eats a triple waffle cone, man? That's just amazing. Gluttony.
That sounds amazing.
He did the thing where, the cargo door on a shuttle got cut off, and I think they lost a bunch of summer squash or something like that.
That's right.
That was a thing that happened.
In the comics, it's canon.
Yeah. So I do think that was maybe some horn effect happening when Gordon reported some things. Like, he's just not like... I've got Professor LaMarche up here, and I got Gordon down here, and whose word am I going to take? Who am I going to listen to? So I think that's really what happened. So I would say my final message is, the next time you're trying to evaluate another person, consider how your first impressions of them might influence your evaluations of other characteristics. Wow. And if somebody comes to you with a legitimate concern about human trafficking, Take it seriously.
Dude, you'd think they would learn that from 500 years from now.
Yeah, not only that, but like we didn't even talk about Sanctuary, where they were all up in Borges's business for letting that cute little baby girl Mocklin go to the Sanctuary planet when they thought he didn't even check to see if they were being trafficked. So take your human traffic seriously, even if it comes from Gordon.
I think that's great takeaway, Mike. I honestly mean that. You really are. Woo, next level, dude. I did not come into this emotionally well today, and I feel so much better. So
well, good. I feel pretty good about this episode too. Hopefully you liked it. If not, let us know. If you didn't like us, let us know.
There's multiple ways you could do that, because we're produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, the technical production who makes us look so good, honestly, is the indispensable Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcast.roddenberry.com. If you're watching with us live on the premiere for YouTube, something like that, join us now on the Mission Log Discord to continue the conversation. If you don't have access, go to patreon.com/Mission Log. And dude, it's just $1 a month. See you next time.
Bye.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.